Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming along. Today, we wanted to talk about core values. But guess what? Before we get started, how about we just take a moment to connect into ourselves and each other? So just take a breath, big sigh. Yeah. And you know what? If you're finding it distracting, you can close your eyes, because really this is about feeling your breath inside you, feeling your connection inside you, and coming back to that self-connected, mindful place. All right, here we go. All the way out. That's it. Good. And let's do another one. Very nice. All right. Well, I'm good with that. I don't know about you guys. So let's talk about core values. Someone jump in. What's a core value that you have? What's one thing that you really believe in?
Kindness.
Kindness. Wow.
It's important.
So great. What does kindness mean to you in your everyday relationships and in your connection with people, especially those ones close to you?
Well, I can say what it means to me. I'm not necessarily
Yes,
going to say that I do it all the time, because I don't.
Wow. You mean you're not allowed to be human? Come on.
Yeah, definitely human. I think for me it means giving consideration and forethought to how another person is feeling, and not taking undue advantage of them, particularly when I'm thinking about looking at just being kind if they're having a hard day, trying to be kind about that and supportive regardless of what's going on,
So this is really, really important. And thank you so much for speaking your mind. A lot of the times we all make assumptions, particularly about the things that are the most important to us. So let me just chunk in a bit here, because that'll help all of us. Is that okay if I do that, Nadine?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So tell me, what was the most consistent in what you said was you kept using the word kind, which is great. But what does kind mean to you? What does that mean in terms of thought? What does that mean in terms of action? And what does that mean in terms of communication?
Communication, for me, I think it means about being respectful when speaking to other people. For communication. What were the other two you said? Thought. Did you say thought?
And actions, yes.
And actions. I think kindness, looking at, the little things, like just going shopping and someone's having a hard time with their kids, or letting them go first, or just tiny everyday things. Someone's dropped a whole thing on the ground when you walk by, and you take that minute to stop and just help them pick it up, and things like that, everyday consistencies where it's just not looked at as if it's unimportant. Does that make sense? The small things not being unimportant.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So this is one of your core values. So what does it actually mean to you? What's the significance of this for your experience of life?
Well, even though I'm not doing a great job at explaining it, it actually says a lot about the type of person that I want to be, but also who I want to be around. It's very important, really with who I surround myself with. I don't want to be in a restaurant and someone is belittling the waiter. I don't, want to be in that situation where someone is always sarcastic or belittling someone's success, or, I'd really, Sarcasm is a big no, but, you know.
What you're saying is really, really brilliant, because look where we've gotten to. As we've chunked down to what was your core value, to understand what it means for you, what's becoming the most clear is what you don't want. In other words, what's my healthy no, right? And this is, you know, but I love this, because more often than not, this is the thing that we can define. We know, for example, we don't want that sort of experience, like you just explained. And this is so critical, right? Because that helps us to define then, okay, if that's not acceptable, then other things are. And depending what those other things are, we may have an awareness of it, or we may have absolutely no awareness of it, other than what we don't want to happen.
I think your question was really good. I think your question was really good, because I spent a long time not knowing what the healthy no was either, and the last few years determining what the healthy no is. And when you asked the question, I realised I'm not sure what the healthy yes is. Yes. In a big sense. Only, you know,
just at a high level, but not what it means. Right. Well, so this is so important for us. And I was actually having this conversation with a young lady today, and the topic was around, you know, being in a relationship, a young relationship, and, you know, her peers, the girls, accusing her of having had sex with her partner very easily, very quickly, and the devastating impact of that. And so we were talking about how she was so dismayed that her partner hadn't behaved in the way that she thought was relevant, or given, you know, the right amount of respect to her feelings. And it's interesting, because unless we're able to firstly know, and then secondly articulate in a healthy, open way what actions are and what their consequences are relevant to ourselves and our deep held core beliefs, no one will appreciate it. They may understand the situation, but from their lens. So and that's what you're demonstrating right there. You've been talking about, okay, kindness, and we all have an assumption of what kindness is. And then as we've chunked it down, it became kind of unclear. Well, the word kind comes up, but what does that really mean? And then what we've determined from that is what's an absolute no. A few good examples of that. And I'm sure you'd be very clear on many more. I just interrupted you, and I apologize for that, but it was such a wonderful learning for us.
No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So this is really important for us. Firstly, what is our core value? Secondly, what's not indicative of it? Thirdly, where am I at in understanding what is a healthy manifestation of it? And then fourthly, how do I explain that in a way that's really at the lowest common denominator? You know, for me, kindness is, I like to look in your eyes. I like to smile. I like to say, hello, you look very nice today. Thanks for being here. Little things. For example, I don't know if that is for you. I was just feeling into me based on that topic that you're talking about, you know. It could be, would you like a cup of tea? You know, hey, how's your foot? Feels cold. Do you mind if I give it a rub? You know, something.
Exactly. Exactly. They seem like the little things, but they're big things.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that if we can't articulate what those little things are that are so big, and yet potentially with the ones closest to us, particularly our partners, we have an expectation that they should be able to understand that they should be able to respond to us at a time when we might not even know that we want them to. That's an inordinate amount of pressure to put on someone, isn't it?
Yes.
And yet we're also not only pressuring them, we're pressuring ourselves. Firstly, by being in that expectation. And it's interesting, as I said to that young lady today, these are our internal assumptions, you know, and we all make them. And it doesn't matter whether you're in a new relationship or a very old one. It's interesting how we can get very upset because, you know, it's like, well, you know, this is really important for me, or this is really important to me. I've been talking to you about it for 20 years. Now the partner's going, yeah, but not quite like this. I mean, this is about doing the dishes. We haven't spoken about this before, you know, and so therefore the connection between the core value and what it means to us, and what are the actions that represent an extension of that, really needs to be something that we have to be aware of, particularly if we're going to engage and involve our loved ones in aligning to them. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else out there? Is that a good example, or is that clear about what a core value could be, or do you want to talk about another one? Because I think examples are the best, right? It's a challenging topic, and it's a short talk today, short webinar, and I just want to cover a few things that make it obvious and give you some food for thought about your everyday lives.
For me, it's honesty.
Wow. So what does that mean, Doris?
Yeah, being really, truly being honest. For example, in a relationship, like being able to talk how to handle if one of the partners is kind of falling in love with somebody else or having sex outside of the relationship, how we are going to handle this.
Wow. So you don't, you just wanted to talk about something insignificant, like infidelity.
No, I mean, this is just an example.
Oh, just a minor little example you might have over a cup of coffee or something.
Listen, I'm not here.
Oh, you Austrians, you're so indirect, aren't you?
I've already told you.
I mean, this is the topic that is probably the most difficult. And there is also honesty in daily life, like here in Bali in the street. Yeah, you get cheated all the time. So
yeah, and excuse me, I apologize. It's this Australian sense of humor, Doris. I was really admiring how upfront and honest you were about a real issue. But yeah, look, I mean, this is the case because honesty is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because it's important to be honest. But how do we use honesty in a way that creates connection, that creates the vulnerability and essence of true communication, versus using honesty as potentially a weapon? In other words, I'm right because this is true, versus, hey, you know what? There's something we need to discuss.
Sorry. I don't know what this is. Sorry.
Thank you. No, thank you. Does that make sense? So there's intention behind honesty. And why are we wanting to be honest? Is it to truly connect and get to some resolution? Or is it that we want to be right, or we want to prove a point, or something like that? So
no, yes. For me, it's because I'm on connection.
Great. Well, that's what I suspected. But that's the first step that we want to understand, particularly around honesty, And then, it's really important that if we ever want to connect with someone else, what's the first step we should consider? We want true connection with someone else. What's a good start before we do that?
Being honest with ourselves.
And what will that create as we're being honest? I mean, what space do we want to be connecting with others from? Maybe we should mute.
From an authentic space.
Right. Authenticity is really great. So we want to be grounded and connected to ourselves, so we can be truly authentic and truly in this place of openness and connection. Yeah? Very cool. And then, it's really important to be very authentic about whatever the topic we're talking about. Yeah. So if it's infidelity or emotions with someone else, it's just about from that grounded place saying, hey, I'm getting the feeling that something is happening here.
Yeah, it's talking from the me, not from the you, yeah? Or about the you.
Wow, so beautifully said. That's where I was getting to, Doris. Really beautifully said. Where is the conversation from me? Because that empowers me. When I can speak about me, my feelings, my experiences, and not about you, then I'm going to be in a better place to get my message across and the other person to hear it, and more open to receive it, and hopefully open an honest dialogue back. Because the more honest we are from this grounded, open, courageous place, the more likely there's space for the other person to do the same, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So that's a really good example, because from knowing you, for sure, honesty is really high on your values list. And for many of us it is, but I really get that integrity and honesty is very, very, very important for you in not only those relationships, but in your general relationships in the time that I've known you, Doris. You're a very upfront lady. So I love that you claim that one. And certainly the way you express who you are and how you are has changed a lot in the time that I've known you. And it's very reflective of the things you're saying right now. So thank you. That's really valuable.
Thank you.
Great. So did you get something out of that one as a core value when we start talking about honesty, Yang?
Yes. Yep.
So
I really liked what Doris said about me and not you. I thought, you said that very well.
What a gem, hey? What an absolute gem. So this is what I would like you guys to do. You know, I mean, consider what are your core values, and start to write down in a similar way that we've done today, what does that actually mean for me? What do I think about when I think about that core value? What are the actions I take and the actions that I would expect back? What are the feelings I have and what do I expect back? And how do we communicate those things? And believe it or not, just those couple of examples we've used today has given you a framework that you will remember as you start to do your own core values. And do you think it's important and worth assessing your core values and where you might be at with them? Yeah, well, you know, I mean, our core values reflect who we are, and it determines the quality of our relationship with ourselves and everyone else. I mean, this is really defining who we are, not who we were, not who we want to be, who we are right now. And that gets back to the comment earlier around authenticity. And yes, it's really important to be authentic about our feelings, but it's also really critically important to be very clear and authentic about our thoughts and our actions. Because whilst people close to us can respect our feelings when we share them, if they don't appreciate the thoughts and the actions and how they link in our view of our core value, they won't be able to meet us there. They won't be able to respect and appreciate the impact. In other words, the extreme feelings we may be having and expressing to them. So that bridge is really, really important for us to have for ourselves, and then to communicate and allow others to join us in and respect both our values and, of course, us respect them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of homework for you guys. If you want to try that out, great. If you want to send me some messages around it as you've written those down, that'd be really good. So that's what I wanted to cover off briefly today around core values. Has anyone got any questions? Nope. All quiet on the western, northern, eastern fronts all around the world? Oh, there we go.
How could you communicate to someone close to you if you don't feel they get or respect your thoughts and actions?
So firstly, are you clear what you want? I mean, so what's the value that you're trying to, that you're wanting to highlight is your core value?
Well, it's sort of an imaginary situation.
Imaginary ones are good, as long as they're specific, we can work with it.
I suppose authenticity to, I'm not sure how to describe it, to honesty, to integrity, to kindness, to to wishing a certain kind of life.
So let's start with the first one, authenticity.
Mm.
So you can run this exercise because, you know, this is going to, because you've got a few that are so closely linked. I'd really like you to write these down and run this exercise for yourself. But let's use the microcosm of authenticity, right? So it's, what does authenticity mean to you? What are the thoughts? What are the actions? What are the feelings? And what are the communications that that create authenticity? How would your life be from this authentic place for you? And then how would that need to be reflected with the person you're talking about?
Wow, I don't know if I'll remember all that.
Great. Well, you know what? You can look at the Zoom video again,
yeah.
and it'll all come back because it's captured it. But take your time with it, Inga, because you're worth investing your time to get that specific understanding. Because if you have that, it's much easier to be able to explain that or set a baseline and set a lot of energy behind that someone else can meet you in. Especially if you might have a lot of history with someone, right? So there's all sorts of historical experiences and pains and other things in the mix, and you're trying to reset something. So it's really important to take your time to work through that. Is that cool?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Let me know how you go, hey?
Yeah.
All right. Well, any more questions, Gabe? Cool.
I don't have a question as such. I just realised in listening that this, you know, the confusion surrounding clarifying a core value, of which I thought that I knew quite simply, and realised that I know a lot of healthy no's on all aspects, whether it's authenticity or honesty or integrity.
Yeah.
Giving that conscious choice in the moment to lessen, you know, my confusion is, I've got to be really clear on what the healthy yes is, because, you know, focus and intent. If I'm so focused on the healthy no, that's what I'm getting. This is what I'm feeling.
Interesting.
This is what I sort of just come to a revelation listening to everybody talk is, yeah, great. It needed to be pulled out and be made aware of. But yeah, now I'd actually like to know the healthy yeses. You know.
So that's a great intention. And as you start to explore this, that's going to become a lot clearer for you, as well as a lot of impediments that stop you from that. But that's how our processes unfold and how we can develop and grow, is when we understand these things. And it doesn't mean that we're analyzing all of these when we're with someone. This is for your own benefit. This is taking the time out and investing your time and your efforts and your energies back into yourself, so we can get a sense of, okay, where am I in my journey and how can I be more present? And as you said, create more conscious choice, particularly in the things that are important to us, the relationships, the events, life as we want it to present and how we want to be present in.
This was very valuable for me tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome. Actually, this is a really hard topic I find to talk about, and yet every time I do, there's always significant returns from the people that we're talking with, because it's so important. Really, it is one of the major determinants of what our life is like. Very good. All right, everyone. Thanks for coming along. I apologize about last week.
Raniel.
Hello,
I thought you
Hasna.
started. Hi.
No, we're just finishing, but you can watch the recording.
Yeah, I'm sure I had some questions. I thought it was the introduction.
Yeah, brief.
Okay,
It's just a 20-minute webinar. But we're having lots of these, Hasna, so every week we'll be having something.
I can't. The hour is too tight for me. Actually, I can if you do it a little bit later. Otherwise,
Sure.
It's a bit complicated.
All right.
Maybe like,
well, you know what? Let's talk about that offline. We'll try and sort something out, yeah?
Yeah, no problem. Hi, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye, everybody. Ciao.
See you, everyone.
Happy to see everybody.
Oh, hello. Miss BB, hello.
Hello.
And a bit late, I'm afraid, but I'll find out the details of this.
Sure. Well, this will be on the YouTube channel, so you can watch this. And typically, most weeks on a Mondays, we'll be having a similar webinar, just brief, probably around 20 minutes, just covering an area of interest. So there'll be lots and lots of things which will allow us to connect either in person like this or via the recording if you can't make it.
Can we, Ranil, can we propose subjects? Or
Please,
are you the one
please
who
send me
is directing subjects?
You're welcome to
Well, I have to
propose
think about it.
subjects.
Like if, yeah.
By all means, just send me the messages of what you're interested in hearing about, and away we go.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Big hugs to
bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
See you next
Bye.
time.
Next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.